Yo, what is up? It's the Heavyist podcast, weekly worship at the altar of radness. We are here today to talk about just a goddamn gem. There's been a ripple in the force, Gary, and it cannot go unnoticed.
We're here to ascend to Deafheaven. Yeah, man. New Deafheaven album came out. It's called Lonely People with Power. It's their sixth album. It came out through Roadrunner Records, which is really cool, on March the 28th. So the Deafheaven story is kind of mental, isn't it, really? Like, I remember I saw him play Brighton 2012. They were headlining, but I don't think I'd actually listened to their music at that point. It was a new experience for me. I'd gone because Circle Takes a Square were in main support, and it was also my first experience at Ken Mode that night as well, which was very cool. It was a very, very cool show. Kyle Esser, I don't know if you know them, they've got two drummers. Anyway, that's got nothing to do with Deafheaven. I just remember at the time, I'd not really gone into black metal in any way. I was aware of the sort of the post-rock scene quite well, but I watched this band play and I was completely mind-boggled. It was like someone had like beamed them down from space. Like, honestly, I had never come across anything like it at the time. It was insane. And I think that was like Roads to Judah. And up until at that point, I don't think the concept of blackgaze had ever really been like thrown around. Maybe, there's probably records that they were inspired by that brought on their kind of signature sound, but I don't think that was like a concept. But then as soon as like the Pitchfork scene got hold of Deafheaven when they released Sunbather, you just never would have imagined a band that sound like them to get as kind of big and as hype as they did, right? Like, it's such a strange thing to happen to a band that sounded like Deafheaven, especially at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such an extreme idea, like black metal,
right?
But make it nice.
Beautiful
so
black metal,
yeah, beautiful black metal. I mean, it's always been a genre that's got a lot of emotion buried into it, and then you just sort of focus that into a different sort of spectrum. You get this absolute gorgeous just sound. They're amazing.
Absolutely, dude. And then, like, I guess they kind of pioneered this genre that we've talked about a lot of records that kind of fit into this genre. But then I don't know if maybe there was an element of they kind of got sick of like how Metallica and the thrash, and then they were like, oh, fuck this, and they did the Black Album. Like, that kind of like that sort of pivot where they kind of get sick of being like the band that everybody else copies, which I guess is where they went on like Ordinary Corrupt Human Love, which I'll be honest, is a record I've never got on board with. It just sounds too much like Oasis for me. Like, obviously you've got George screaming over the top of it, but it's just not a record I've ever got on with. How do you feel about that one?
It's odd, isn't it? It's like
really
willfully obtuse, that record, and it's fantastic. Like, I enjoy it. I enjoy all their records. But like, I probably would reach for Sunbather if I'm looking for Deafheaven to go to, right? That's where they sort of cemented this brilliant blackgaze sound.
Absolutely, that, and then like New Bermuda, when they kind of made it even more dark and horrible and really lent into the like the ominous dread of it all. Like, that to me is kind of the sweet spot for this band. At least it was.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about them is that they've been on a constant evolution. They sort of moved into that, and then New Bermuda, they like doubled down on the black metal. They're like, oh, what, we're being too nice for Sunbather, like we're going to go back, absolutely go mental. And then you get the sort of the weird, wacky stuff coming in, and then Infinite Granite, where they go completely off the end, and all these different things. Like, I mean, so we'll get there in a minute, but what's interesting is that you can never really pigeonhole them, because they're like sort of doing one thing, but then think about was it Black Brick, the single that came out in
Yes, yeah,
2019,
yeah, it
right?
was, yeah.
So that was like a single that came out, and this is post. This is post
Ordinary
the
Corrupt Human
ordinary.
Love. It's in
Yeah,
between, isn't it? It came out in
yeah.
between Ordinary Corrupt Human Love and Infinite Granite. They put out Black Brick, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, whoa!"
So you go, right, like you think you know what they're up to, and then they go, right, now we're going to just go pure black metal again and go absolutely mental. And then you'd expect the album for that to sort of be a foreshadowing of the album in some respect, and
Yeah,
then it absolutely
and
was
it
not, because they went a
completely
complete
wasn't.
other direction with Infinite Granite. Infinite Granite was an album that I did not expect to enjoy as much as I did. It was
Agreed.
so obvious that they could turn their hands to anything realistically. Like whatever they were going to do, they were going to do it with just loads of heart, loads of chops, and it came off beautifully.
Absolutely, man. Like exactly what you're saying. Like you can't second guess them. They're so signature in what they do, but yet at the same time, you never know what to expect when an album's come in. And like I wasn't really, I don't, I wouldn't say I wasn't excited as such as I just kind of was like, okay, cool, new Heaven album's coming out, and then I listened to Lonely People with Power, and I was just completely just blown the fuck away by this record. Like this record is spectacular. It's
Yeah.
magnificent. It's so triumphantly glorious in all of its, and I'm using every single one of our like words that we put lines through because we use them too often, but they all are warranted when talking about this record. It's incredible. And the fact that it's kind of, do you remember when we reviewed Radical and we were kind of like, Radical is sort of like cherry picking all of the best bits from previous Every Time I Die albums and kind of amalgamating them, except on that record you kind of go, that track's the Gut Phenomenon track, that chuck's the new Junk Aesthetic track, whereas on this Deafheaven record they've kind of taken all of their past successes in other places and just kind of made a stew, like a Deafheaven stew.
Yeah.
And the result of what you get here is just, it's so good. It's so exciting. It's so lovely. Yeah, I'm so taken by this record. I was not expecting. I love that happens still. I love. I'm still in a position where I'm trying to be as on the pulse about new music as possible, and a new record from a big band comes out, and I'm completely floored by it.
Yeah. It's just like the creative, all of the different sort of things that they've done previously. They've just put to work here in creating like song structures. It's not like, oh, that's the new Bermuda track, that's the Infinite Granite track. It's like they'll use these sounds and navigate them so brilliantly to just create a product that is realistically better than it's the sum of its parts. Like it's all of those albums put to absolute work, and it's so good to like see this get pulled off. Isn't there like so often when we'll listen to a band and we'll like listen to them experiment, we'll go, that was all right, but I wish they'd have like folded that into their overall sound. Like, you know, I enjoyed that track or I enjoyed that album, but like I wish they sort of just tried a bit harder. And that's exactly what Deafheaven done here. They've came out and these are objectively like some of the better songs they've ever written, and they've really, you know, and on top of doing everything all at once that they're doing, they've also found a way to make the tracks lean. Like there's not these like 10-14 minute tracks, like, you know, they sit around the 6-7 minutes mark, which for Deafheaven is really good. I mean, you know,
I mean, you could legitimately call multiple tracks on this record bangers, right? Which is not something you would have ever come across. Maybe you could talk about Infinite Granite in such a way, but like if you go back to when they were like heavier, more kind of akin to what's going on this record, they were like 15-minute tracks. They were big sprawling like movements. They were very kind of orchestral in the way that they approached it, whereas on this record they're just so succinct, and like you can never, again, even track to track, you can't second guess them. Like they do so much interesting stuff. Like inherently the genre of music that they've kind of created is fairly one note. You know, most bands don't necessarily aim to write songs. They aim to write like atmosphere. They aim to create an
Yeah, they
atmosphere,
cultivate. They spend a lot of time cultivating.
It's all cultivation. But like, it feels like Deafheaven have gone out of their way to kind of like we were saying with Imperial Triumphant. They've gone out of their way to like make something more catchy and more instantaneous. But the atmosphere and all of the kind of moodiness and everything that you expect is not like sacrificed as a result. Like it's all still there. It's all still like intense and emotional, and the record has this absolutely amazing ebb and flow. I mean, it's like a 62-minute record. There's a lot of it, so you kind of need to be able to stay engaged with it, and they have not made that difficult at all. Like the way it kind of opens really heavy and then kind of gets more sort of introspective, and in the middle it gets really like emotionally vulnerable, and then it kind of ramps back up to being like a really triumphant like crescendo off the end of the record. Like the flow of the album is bloody perfect. I honestly can't think of another album that flows as well as this one.
Yeah, and it's so good because for an album that big, you really do need that. You need to sort of feel its movements and like appreciate the track to track vibe of it, and like just like as an experience, it's just so rewarding. It's elating entirely. It's just absolutely bloody gorgeous. Like, I mean, we'll get into some tracks. The Garden Route always sticks out to me. Proper, brilliant, sort of jangly.
The Doberman into Magnolia 1-2 adds the opening where they get probably the most metal that they've been. Like, that's such an exciting intro. Like, generally they're more of a slow burn beginning kind of band, but you get that sort of short intro track, and then they just come at you with these two tracks, and straight away you're like, all right, okay. Like, they probably go in and try to shut up a load of the true cult kind of people who are like, oh god, Deafheaven, bunch of soy boy wankers. Like, and they're like, straight away they're like, here's our metal dick, have a look at it.
Yeah, here's our like Black Brick Energy New Bermuda shit. We're just gonna come out with like loads of sick thrash riffs.
And a friggin' breakdown as well in Magnolia, which is absolutely wicked. I don't know if I've ever heard them do a breakdown before.
But Garden Route, mate. Garden Route, just properly beautiful, lovely and jangly. It's so bright, and it's the perfect sort of runway into Heathen. And I love how Heathen sort of leans into that softer Infinite Granite sound, but it's just so sort of major in key and glistening, and it just folds in their blackgaze sound to that Infinite Granite sound. So good. They really do put these ideas together just phenomenally.
Yeah, man. I kind of look at it as like baking a cake. There's like, they start off with the first two tracks of like really heavy on the black metal. That's the flour. That's the staple part of what they're doing. And then the shoegaze is kind of the sugar. And then they've got post-punk as the butter to create the batter. Can you tell I'm on a diet? Because I'm really like just focusing on cakes right now. But you know what I mean? Like that, the way that they've put this album together is like metal first, and then the other stuff is kind of added in. Like, especially when you get into songs where it's more sprawling and more emotional, but you still get George like shrieking over the top. Like, the man is a legend. Like, he can ride the wave of a heavy song like bloody Shaun White. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's incredible the way that he knows what to do when, in a style that is generally, we kind of write a song and the vocalist. Sometimes you listen to black metal bands, you're like, has the vocalist even heard of this song, or is he just kind of going over the top of it? But George is a tactician, and he's a master artist when it comes to like knowing what to do when, and when to like really get shrill or like lean and get a bit more like introspective and give you some of that singing that we got from Infinite Granite that is lovely, and he approaches it really, really well. Like, Amethyst is kind of the song where you get the more sort of chorusy vibe, and that song's so good. I mean, every song on this album is so good, even the interlude type tracks, the incidental 1, 2 and 3 there. I mean, incidental 2 is like Chelsea Wolfe and Author and Punisher doing a collaboration. Like, it's
Yes.
So Devo, isn't it? It really smacks really hard. But then it's one of the vocalists, it's Boy Harsher, who I've never heard of before, but there's like a guest vocal, and it sounds incredible and absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I love that. I love how Incidental 2, it sort of starts very delicate and honest, and then it sort of descends into this digital hellscape. You can feel it sort of deteriorating as it goes on. It's such a brilliant thing. And then you come off that deterioration, that you go into the digital hellscape, and then bang, you're into Revelatory, and like yes,
Revelator
Jesus.
is man, I love it. I love the fact that you could like take Revelator, you could, you know what, you could play it to one of these true cult black metal fans. I'm going to give him a name. I'm going to call him Charlie Corpse Paint, right? You could play it to Charlie Corpse Paint. Don't tell him who it's by, and he would absolutely fucking love it. And then you tell him this song's by Deafheaven, and he'd probably be sick in his mouth. I love that. I think that's like, it's just so sweet to hear that song and just be like, you see, shut up, haters. Everyone who thinks that Deafheaven not hard enough for the metal scene, like they're just proving everybody wrong with that track. It's absolutely raggo, mate.
Yeah, mate, I love the vocals at the end of Revelator. Like he gets to a point that is just insane. Like there is so much passion by the end of that track. It's so goddamn emotional. It's brilliant. It's such a feat, mate. It's unreal.
That's one of the things I remember from that first time that I saw him, is the passion, and also he was quite sexy. He had like quite sexy moves, which was quite it's quite a lot. But absolutely the passion, and like I think generally, I don't know if he still does it these days, but he's like a mic stand vocalist. But honestly, he's so like into it. He's probably going to snap that mic stand in half. Like it's proper. It's just all there in that song. And then it rolls into like Body Behavior, which I had a little skim of a few reviews to get a bit of a temperature check on what's going on with people and this record. And generally, people pick out Body Behavior as the highlight of the record, and I can absolutely understand why. Like bringing that kind of hip shaky, like goth club vibe into this really aggressive black metal like landscape just works so well. Like you could imagine it having a really good guest spot by Matt from Grave Pleasures on the chorus, but you could just see it kind of fitting in. But I just love the way it works, and there's that kind of bit where it gets a bit kind of indie and jangly, and the drums just do something so interesting. Like they're so creative. It's something I really thought about on this whole record. Is, you know, black metal drumming is incredibly impressive, but it's quite standard, isn't it? There's quite a sort of standard. You do blast beats, you go like the techniques are very, very impressive and difficult to pull off, but a lot of black metal drumming is quite sort of cut and paste.
It's usually sort of just like driving the blasts,
exactly,
and like sort of building, isn't it?
It's just that kind of like that rumble. But the drummer in Deafheaven takes so many really interesting and creative approaches. I guess it's because he's influenced by so much more beyond just black metal, that he can bring all of these influences into what he's doing, and he just does these little things and has these little ideas that are so interesting, from like literally the first drum beat that you hear all the way to the end. It's incredible, and I honestly think the drumming is one of the most exciting aspects of this record. And then Body Behavior was the song where I just kind of was like, holy crap, like this guy's like doing bits.
Yeah, that track's amazing, man. I love how there's almost like, there's like a post-punk vibe that rolls in, and there's like a nuance in the delivery and the vocals. Like he goes sort of more of a shouty vocal before he bursts into his screams.
Cool, isn't
it? It's like sort of different characters in it, and it's absolutely sick. I bloody love it. Like, going from that shouty punk into that black metal scream is just fucking godly, mate. And then you get a lovely bit of spoken word. Don't mind that. That's lovely.
That's a matey from Interpol, apparently.
Yes. Big up Interpol.
Yeah, man. Big up Interpol. Although I only really know like the songs that were on Guitar Hero, I think, if I put myself on
I mostly know the MTV2 bangers from the glory days.
Yeah. Absolutely. But then, oh my God. Then we get into Winona, man. That song has shoplifted my heart.
Hell yes, bro. Hell yeah. No, I love that.
That's an old school reference. It was probably been about 25 years since Winona Ryder got caught shoplifting. But you know,
she's one of the main shoplifters. Her
and Anthony Worrell Thompson.
Anthony Worrell Thompson. Yeah, that's it.
Legends in the shoplifting game. Mate, Winona is one of the most magnificent and beautiful songs I've heard in the last 10 years. That song honestly could reduce me to tears. It's so lush and beautiful. Like there's a part when some of the instrumentals actually almost sound like "Oh Come All Ye Faithful," which is it's it's like a choir. It's so like, it's, what's the word, elegiac, isn't it? It just feels like angels. That song is absolutely beautiful, even with
Yeah,
George screaming his bumps off.
it's so sick. What I got from that is, do you remember? It gave me this beautiful energy. Do you remember the first Man of Steel trailer? Like before it came out, there was
Yeah,
like this
I do.
this trailer that was just so epic, and it felt so hopeful and intense and brilliant. And like it was the score of that trailer, which I don't know if it ended up getting used in the movie, but it was like there's moments in that really felt like that trailer, like just so beautiful and hopeful, and they create a proper tension in that
Yeah,
in
man.
that track. It's just, oh, it's so gorgeous, that thing. And the video's lovely. It's like probably one of the best looking music videos I've ever
I've
seen.
not watched the music
It's
video.
so cool.
I need to check that out.
One thing that is really great as well, is they have made a bunch of like visualizers for all the tracks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, especially my favorite one is for the Marvelous Orange Tree. And it is very, very cool. It's very weird. It's like this dude with this weird white face. It's like a guy looking in the mirror, and then the guy, like this dude's got this really weird, like crusty white face, and it's just super like odd and unsettling and awesome. And I absolutely love it. Like there's all the different ones with like using like sort of beautiful photography. Yeah, I love that. I love that commitment to sort of attention to detail, to making all these really cool, interesting things.
Kind of multimedia. Like, it doesn't surprise me that they're into that kind of thing. Like, even down to like that photo on the front cover. It's so like ambiguous and kind of what's going on in that picture. Like, it's so interesting. And they've gone through different kind of styles. Like the Sunbather, the front cover of Sunbather is like absolutely iconic at this point. Like, you could put that up for someone who's into heavy music. You could put that up against like the front cover of Nevermind, and they'd probably be able to like compare, like pick them both out. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't explain that very well, but basically it's an iconic image. But like, I just love everything around it. And the Marvelous Orange Tree, like, I've not seen these visualizers, but I think that song's such an incredible way to end this record. Like, I've dabbled in post rock in my time. I've listened to a lot of bits and pieces. It's not something that it's difficult to get right. It's a tricky genre. It's one of them genres where it's so easy to have a crack at, but it's so difficult to like make something incredible out of. I mean, a lot of people think you just set your guitar and reverb and play a riff for 10 minutes and away you go. But it's to make something that really stays with someone and is really compelling and not just good background music, is got to be nigh on impossible. And I feel like the Marvelous Orange Tree is a real like triumph in that area. Like, it's a real great success in creating a post-rock song that stays with you. Just generally, this whole album is just incredible. It's just such a bloody incredible record. Like, I'm really sold on it. I'm really in love with it. I've been listening to it absolutely loads, jamming it, driving around, jamming it with my headphones. Like, yeah, I'm sold, man. I'm really sold. Deafheaven are back. Not that they ever really went away, but
No.
if you if you kind of were one of those people who's like, I love Deafheaven when they were heavy, and I think now they've gone a little bit indie, I'm kind of a bit out now.
Yeah.
Come back, guys. The water's lovely.
I'm thinking of Infinite Granite as their Time Wave Zero. Like,
okay,
yeah. You think about those two records, like a band at the top of their game, just absolutely diving into like a completely different genre. And it definitely alienated a lot of fans on both sides. But then the record that came after, like, I think they had to be just so completely immersed in that genre, like to really get to sort of be able to wield it properly, to be able to apply it to their their larger sound. And both of those records, like Time Wave Zero and Infinite Granite, have just been beautiful stepping stones into creating just albums of the year material. Like, in both of them, that they've made their best record. That's my theory.
I like it.
Well, it's not really a theory, is it? It's an observation.
It's an observation, but I'll take it. Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes. So what we've got to do is we've got to think, like, when a band we love does a mental album, don't get too bummed out about it, because in about 4 years you'll be blown away. Like
Sometimes it's like when you grind in a video game so that you can get to the next boss, and it like sometimes you've got to
100%.
go and you've
Yeah,
got
they're
to
on
do
an
some
XP
stuff.
farm.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to go and do some stuff to get some skills so that you're ready to like really put them all into practice and really just deliver. And that was very true on Blood Incantation. It's very true here as well. It's just like just honing that aspect of your sound so that you can then wield it effectively. Yeah, man. Incredible. Absolutely incredible record. Lonely People with Power by Deafheaven, out now. Make sure you listen to it if you haven't yet. And if you have, let us know what you thought about it in the old commentaroonies.
Yeah.
We love you all, and we'll see you very, very soon for more riff talk.
For more riff talk. Bye-bye.
Peace.